Hey everybody, Syntax77 here, and today we're going to be doing a little what's in my pack video. As you can see, I have my pack back here, and this is going to be very similar to my winter backpacking gear list video in that you can kind of view this one of two ways. Either as a standalone video or as a companion to my Hiking the Great Smoky Mountains full-length video that I did about a week ago. Just got back from that 3-day overnight trip, and as promised, I will now show you everything that was in my pack during that video. And for those of you who haven't already seen that video, then feel free to take a peek at that after watching this, and you can see this gear in action. This is literally everything I had on that trip, and we'll just go through it piece by piece. Now this right here is 11.2 pounds, and the only actual difference is I obviously was filming a full-length video, so I had a bunch of camera gear that I excluded that because I don't think that that really applies to most people. But at the end of the video, I'll show you some of that, and then some of it you might want to use, so you could add an extra pound or so. Now there's a lot of different definitions of ultralight out there, and I don't want to get into too much debate, okay? One of those definitions is under 10 pounds, so in that case, I guess you're not going to like me too much because I'm a pound over that. But as I go through this, I'll kind of point out some items that you could spare here and there if you're really concerned with getting under that 10-pound mark. As a matter of fact, I even have a full gear list that I'll be posting over on my website in both PDF and Excel format. And got to give a shout out to geargrams.com. I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but it's just a site I stumbled upon. It's really cool. You can build a database of your gear and then kind of build different lists, do printouts, export your data, share it with other people. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I'll post some links at my website to that for anybody interested in the full list of gear. And again, it's what works for you. Now I'm all for analytics and geeking out, so I totally respect the art of just having a goal and wanting to look at the numerics and get under a certain amount. But when it really comes down to it, I think the whole reason that this ultralight thing has come to be is ultimately it's all about comfort. You want to be comfortable. Now, we get all caught up in the hiking aspect, but it's not just about the hiking, it's the comfort of the hiking plus when you get to camp. So, you could have the lightest pack out of your hiking crew, but then when you get to camp and your friends are all comfortable and you're completely miserable because you had your 3-pound load out, then ultimately your trip isn't that comfortable and might not be that fun. So just something to think about. All right, let's get down to it. I'm going to change the view a little bit, and we'll just start going through this piece by piece. As a matter of fact, I'm even going to show you what I was wearing, so we'll start off with that. First off, the hat. By the way, everything synthetic that I'm showing you. All right, hat, lightweight. This is an EMS brand hat, synthetic, dries quick. It's pretty light, nice. Socks. In this case, I got wool socks. They're actually a blend of wool and synthetic. Choice is yours. I was doing completely synthetic socks prior to this. Switched over to the wool. Lightweight, I like it. Totally up to you, but either way, go wool or synthetic or some sort of blend. Stay away from the cotton would be my advice on that. In terms of footwear, me personally, I'm still running a mid-length boot, but that is pretty rare for a light load setup like this. Most guys probably going to be doing something low cut, probably a trail runner, save themselves the weight instead of this. This is considered overkill for this kind of lightweight setup, but for me personally, I just like the ankle support until I find something else. This is a Nike Pro Combat shirt that we've seen plenty of times in the videos. It works, fitted, and I like that. If you can catch one on sale, great. Preon 2 flashlight. I like this thing, goes up really nice and bright, and I carry this every day. Not just when hiking, so I really like that, and it only weighs a couple ounces even with batteries in it. Map printout, okay? No need to bring the big old heavy map. Nope, just print out a map, weighs virtually nothing unless you're super into grams. And you can print out the specific region you need, just keep it in a plastic bag, and you're good to go. Knife, not the lightest knife in the world, but I really like it. 2 ounces is still not that bad. This is a SOG Blink. You can get a flash that rings in an ounce if you want, but I just really happen to like this knife. Again, that's something I carry every day, so I'm totally used to it. It's like part of my body weight. And finally, pants. These are EMS convertible pants. The legs zip off. I almost always, even no matter how warm it is, I keep the legs on there. Just to keep ticks and just brush off of my legs and stuff Nice thing is the bottoms get dirty, you just zip them off when you get to camp, and you can sleep without the bottoms if you want. So there's a nice quick dry, and that's really it. I didn't really bring a whole spare outfit, and I'll get into that later once we start opening up the pack. And there it is. Now this particular pack is the Osprey Hornet 46. Osprey is the company, Hornet is the model. They have 3 different sizes. The 46 is the largest one, 46 liters. I like it. This thing weighs in around 22 ounces, depending on the size you get. Now, there are much lighter ultralight themed backpacks out there. They can go down super light. That'll make this thing even look heavy, even though it is only 1.5 pounds. But the nice thing about this is it still has a frame. Not quite as hardcore as one of your larger backpacks, but it is a frame nonetheless. It has 2 synthetic rods to go down each side, as well as a foam frame in the back that is removable if you wish to take it out to save even more weight. But at 1.5 pounds, it's perfect for me, and it's still got some nice support to it. All right, let's just work through our bag here and see what we come to. We'll go through the outside pockets first, work our way in, and then we'll get to the big 3. All right, so right off the bat, I got an item that's probably gonna make some of the ultralight purists cringe. But these are flip-flops. They cost me about 6.5 ounces. The nice thing is, when I get to camp, I can wear these, spare my feet from the boots. Now, water crossings, I can wear these instead as well. And some people will say not worth the weight, but dry boots weigh a lot less. I'd say you get your boots wet, you're gonna be adding more than 6 ounces. So you gotta kind of look at it that way as far as trudging through water crossing with boots on. But either way, personal preference. Like I said, there's certain items you could trim if you really want to get down low, and a lot of people will just say ditch the flip-flops, but for me it's worth it. Next up, all right, okay, perfect. Water filtration. Sawyer Squeeze, seen it in my video plenty. Has dirty water bag, and you hook it right up to the filter, squeeze it through, squeeze gently. You're not gonna make it go any faster by squeezing harder, you're only gonna bust the bag. But other than that, in this actual filter, no moving parts. So outside of freezing it or slamming it with a sledgehammer, I don't see how you're gonna break this thing. I really like it. This weighs around 3 ounces, and your bags are like 1/4 ounce a piece or something like that. I bring 2 bags. I got another one buried in there. 64 ounce bag and then a 32 ounce. I almost always use the larger bag, but the 32 ounce is a backup in case of failure, which I haven't had yet, but never can be too safe, and it doesn't really cost you much weight. And there's the other bag right there. So that covers water filtration for about 3 ounces. Okay, this guy here, this is actually a backup map. Since I'm using home printouts, they might get messed up or wet, so I just have a backup copy. And then I also have a larger scale map that I probably wouldn't use, but just in case things got really out of hand. And off course, I could take a look at that, get my bearings. And finally, a copy of my campsite registrations. Now that depends on the area you're going, but there you go. So 3 sheets of paper, that's not too bad weight-wise. All right, this is 25 feet, I believe, of paracord for hanging up bear bags, or any other tasks like that. Did weigh about 1.75 ounces for the 25 feet. I will also point out, these could make an excellent shoelace replacement in the event that shoelace breaks. That would suck, and you can use it for that. In the Smokies where I went, they had bear bags, but in case they didn't, or you're in a different area, there you go. There's how you hang up your food at night. Let's get into the side pockets. This should be pretty identical on each side. Water bottles. No Nalgene's going on here. I do that in the winter when I need more indestructiveness, but this is just a regular old Dasani water bottle. It's going to weigh maybe 1/4 to 1/2 ounce at the most. It's strong enough for summer. Just don't pour boiling hot water into it. That is a drawback that will destroy it. But other than that, you're good to go. On the other side, another one, okay, identical. Now, actually, at no point did I ever actually carry 2 whole liters of water. I did maybe 1.5 liters at the most. A lot of times just carried 1 liter. That depends on the area you're going to be in and your comfort level, but really you don't need to carry 2 to 3 liters of water if you plan your trip correctly. Also, the thing with 2 bottles, even though I'm usually carrying just 1 liter, this gives me the capability to carry more if my situation changes, and more importantly, I actually would, if I'm carrying just 1 liter, I would put a 1/2 liter in each one on each side of the pack. Now that might seem a little over the top, but you think about it, water weighs 2.2 pounds approximately per liter. If your entire loadout, including food and water, is 20 pounds and you add 2.2 pounds to one side, well, you're throwing things off like 10%. You know, that can kind of throw your walk off and uneven muscle fatigue and stuff like that. So I like to kind of just even the load out on each side there. Speaking of which, when I said 11 pounds earlier, that was base weight. For those of you not as familiar with the terms, base weight is everything except for consumables. Consumables would be variable items like food, water, and fuel. Okay, so this is everything else. So on this trip, I had an additional 7 pounds of food and water, plus my camera gear, so my total weight was 20 pounds. So just something to keep in mind there when I talk about 11-pound base weight. One final thing on the outside, my fuel bottle, that has a little bit in it too, a couple ounces there. This is for my alcohol stove, which we'll see later. This is actually my leftover fuel there, just a couple ounces. It was probably originally only up to like right here. And I put some tape around there so I don't confuse it for water. That's not fun. That does away with the outside pockets. Final thing, a carabiner. You could use this for a lot of things, costs you about 1/4 to 1/2 of an ounce. You can tie your bear bag up with this, etc. All right, let's work our way towards the big three, and then we'll get to smaller items. All right, we got spare clothing. I did not bring full outfits for each day. This was summertime, so I just brought spare socks and underwear for each day. That's really up to you. I would say definitely bring at least one spare set. And at a max, I'd say 2 spare sets, because if you're going any longer than that, you could just wash them in streams and stuff, always have a pair drying out. So I would say at least 1 pair, 2 pairs maximum for spare socks and underwear. And then this here is a long sleeve shirt. Again, warm weather, but this was nice for nighttime if that chill came on. And this is actually the shirt I would sleep in. I would just bunch up the arms and wear it kind of like a short sleeve and let my main shirt dry out overnight while I wore this. If it got chilly, I pull the sleeves down. That's all the spare clothes. I really wasn't worried about sleeping in the pants. Again, you can zip the bottoms off of those convertibles if they get dirty. So your mileage may vary. You might want to have more extra comfy clothes, but for me, it worked just fine. And those extra clothes, they really do add up. Speaking of clothing, dry ducks. These are Frogg Toggs or dry ducks, whatever you want to call them. Google it. You'll see it. Pretty popular with ultralighters. And it's a whole rain suit. If it's summertime and you know the situation, you might not need these at all. You'll just walk in the rain. That's fine. But I was in the Smokies. It can rain a lot there. Just wasn't trying to deal with that for 3 days. So I brought these. As you can see, they completely go out to a nice oversized pair of pants and a full parka with zipper and hood. It even has stretchy little wrists there. Drawstring for the hood. It's really awesome for 10 ounces or so. Moving past that, let's get to the Cookset. Okay, we've seen this in my other videos, but I won't go too deep into it, but there it is, the Cookset. Everything in here weighs 7.25 ounces. I just have the plastic on there to cut the abrasion on my pack. Rubber band to keep it sealed. Lid. Again, that 7 ounces includes everything in here. I got some waterproof matches, small piece of tin foil, a flint striker, bowl, cup. This is the actual stove. This is a measurer for the fuel, because I like to get pretty accurate with that so I can carry just what I need. Another lid for the small cup, and a windscreen made out of a can. Fits right around the bottom. So for under a ½ pound, you got your Cookset. What do we got next? Finally got some part of the big three. For those of you wondering what I'm talking about with that big three thing, by the way, it's your 3 major, heaviest challenges, and that would be sleep system,
1,
your bag,
2,
and shelter.
3.
Okay, the bag, 1.5 pounds. Sleep system, we're getting to right now. This is just a fleece liner. This is actually sold to put in a full sleeping bag to jack up its rating, but in my case, I'm able to take my hammock down to about 50 degrees comfortably with this, combined with the sleeping pad that I'll show you. This is about the low end extreme of what you're going to want to do. It's really up to you. You're going to have to experiment and know your sleeping temperatures, but for me, just a fleece liner is fine. Now, it wouldn't really cost you that much more weight. You could get a 45 degrees sleeping bag for probably 50 bucks. I think there's one on Amazon, but it's going to be closer to 2 pounds. This guy here is around 23 ounces, including the stuff sack, so not too bad. And the sleeping pad that I talked about, Klymit Inertia X-Frame, weighs in under 9 ounces. Showed this in the other videos as well. Great for tents, as well as not very conventional, but I actually use it in my hammock, and it does make a big difference. Now, I like to put it in the bag so it doesn't slip around. Again, this is personal preference. That might drive some people nuts, but temperature-wise, yes, it does work, because the first night was a little chillier on my latest trip, and I did use this, kept me nice and warm. The second night was a little hotter, and I took this out from underneath of me, and suddenly I felt much better. So that means it's definitely doing its job and keeping you warmer at night. Some people use underquilts, but A, I don't have an underquilt yet, and B, finding an 8-ounce underquilt, kind of tough to do. Things got really bad, for about 1.5 ounces, got an emergency space blanket. Always like to carry that. As you can tell, I've never had to use it, but it's nice to have. Finally, the shelter. Hennessy Hammock Expedition ASIM. Seen this in the videos. There's plenty of brands of hammocks out there. You can take your pick, okay? Now, at one point, this guy is 53 ounces, so you're looking at close to 3 pounds, and that's for everything that you need, but close to 3 pounds. They make different versions that are, you can get much lighter than this. The trade-off is, A, if you're a bigger guy, less support, so you might have no option but to do this. For me, I'm not that big of a dude, but I like the extra roominess, so, I mean, compared to carrying a tent, it's still awesome to carry just 3 pounds, so that works for me. That includes the actual hammock, the rain fly, suspension system, all that good stuff. I also have in here 2 tent spikes that cost me a 1/2 ounce a piece, so there's 1 ounce there. I've not brought these before. It's not that big of a deal. You can tie to a tree, a shrub, a stick, whatever. I have 4 tie-off points, so I find it convenient just for at least 2 of them to be able to stick these down without looking for anything. And then for the other ones, you can just wrap your tie-off points around rocks and stuff. All right, only a couple things left in the actual bag. I got some spare plastic bags for trash, dirty clothes, whatever you want. Trash bag, full-size trash bag. You could individually put your food in this and hang it from a tree, or in my case, since it was so convenient in the Smokies with the bare cable systems, I just put this completely around my bag for extra waterproofness and hoisted the whole thing in the air. That's nice. Also a nice little ground cloth for organizing stuff. Repair kit for that sleeping pad I showed you. Only cost about 1/2 ounce, little piece of mine. And finally, some fire starters, just lint mixed with wax. Costs you about 1/2 ounce to 1 ounce, depending on how much you bring. That knocks out the interior of the bag. 2 items I keep on the front strap, and that's actually a Timex watch at 1 ounce, as well as a bottle of bug spray. Save yourself the aggravation and the weight of an aerosol. Instead of carrying 30% aerosol, that's a 1/2 to a full pound, just carry a little 1 ounce thing of 100% Deet. It works for me. All we're down to now is the top pockets. All right, let's do the top outside first. First up, spare small water bottle. I just used that to shake up iced coffee. Sunscreen, cost you about 1 ounce, well worth it. By the way, the new airline regulations have really created a whole convenience for hikers to find small packages of just about everything. Here's a fork / spoon, and it costs you about 1/2 ounce, made by Light My Fire. I like that. That's the only piece you haven't seen so far in my Cookset. These 2 items are actually attached to my bag so I don't lose them. Brunton Classic Compass, okay, about 1 ounce. And a small lighter, again, about 1 ounce. So you see I have a lot of redundancy with my fire system, but it's just how I like it, and it still hasn't cost me that much weight. All right, here's a controversial item, something you could ditch. A lot of people are going to go nuts when they see this. This is a pack cover, costs about 3.5 ounces. A lot of people just shove a bag in the interior of their main compartment, like a plastic bag, to save weight. A lot of people just don't want to carry the extra 3 ounces. I'll say this though, until I check the water resistance of this bag, it's probably going to soak up water if it gets wet. I would say it's going to soak up more than 3 ounces. So while you're carrying extra weight dry, when it finally does rain, it's probably going to end up being a lighter load for you. But that's just me. Again, this is something you could ditch if you just line the inside with a garbage bag. Preferred choice seems to be trash compactor bags. All right, this will only cost you about 1 ounce, and it's a insect shield head net by Sea to Summit. These things are only around 10 bucks. Definitely use this in the Smokies, and it's chemically treated, keeps bugs away. Even if it's not fully over your head, they seem to leave you alone. Knocked out the exterior, and final area is in here. Okay, toilet paper, don't forget that, and a couple napkins. Speaking of toilet paper, definitely want to have toothbrush and toothpaste, travel size. Costs you about 1.5 ounces, and if you're so lucky as to wear contacts, then you're going to need some solution and some spare contacts, which will bring the whole kit up to 3 ounces for toiletries. An old room key from a hotel with some duct tape wrap around it. You can fix your tarps, etc. with this. Only costs you about 1 ounce or so, and you got some nice amount of duct tape. First aid, this is another area where you can make a lot of personal changes. In here, I've got pretty much bare minimum. I've got some Band-Aids, a little bit of gauze, some Neosporin, some rubber gloves. Those can be useful in colder and wet weather as backup gloves, and also if you're treating someone else, that's kind of worth the 1/2 ounce. And a couple single-use tubes, very light, of crazy glue. You could use those to fix the tent or stop pesky bleeding, whatever. So there's first aid kit. Whole thing only actually weighs a little over 1 ounce. Ibuprofen in there as well in a little foil packet. Headlamp. Okay, I already have a flashlight, but I do like a headlight as well. Couple ounces for that, but that is nice at night. Does a nice red beam, so it lasts a while. I don't carry any spare batteries because I make sure that my pen light as well as my headlamp use the same type of batteries, so if one set of batteries fails, I can just take it out of the other or use the other. It's not the end of the world, but I like having both. That's just me. Again, somewhere that you might be able to shave 1 ounce or 2. Just carry one light source. Okay, some hand sanitizer. Antibacterial. I find this is nice for cleaning up your hands before a meal. If you get tree sap on your hands, this takes it off pretty well. And this is flammable, so that's a nice backup fire thing. Here's something simple. Spare water cap for my fuel bottle or water. If you lose a cap, that bottle's pretty useless and they're easy to lose. So spare cap won't cost you any weight practically, and you got a backup. Some wet wipes. These are nice to clean up with. I think that's worth 1 ounce or so there. And that, yep, that's it. That's everything. Now I'll show you real quick some optional items, but that's the 11 pounds right there. All right, a big one here, you could bring a GPS. That's gonna cost you 6 to 8 ounces. If you know the area, you don't need this. I probably wouldn't even be carrying it for a lot of these areas either, if it wasn't for the fact that I like to collect trip data for the videos and just stats and stuff. Now, if you do carry a GPS, you're gonna need spare batteries for it most likely, just to be safe. And that'll cost you like a little under 1 ounce or so, depending how many you bring. This is a solar charger. I bring these. I actually have 2 of these. I don't always bring 2 on every trip, but because I'm running cameras, I like to have the ability to recharge in addition to the extra batteries I bring, which, you know, you can see how I added up those extra 2 pounds. This is a little bungee cord that I use to affix solar chargers to the outside of my pack. A tripod, but a lot of you probably like to film as well, so this is nice and it only weighs 1.5 ounces. Wires for recharging my cameras. Those add up, unfortunately. I also bring a whole separate spare camera just in case of failure. Now, a second option, instead of a solar charger, if your only concern is cell phone power, is just bring in a spare battery. You could probably get a spare battery for 30 bucks, and this will only cost you 1 ounce. Now, if you're an iPhone user, not gonna help you out, because Mommy Macintosh doesn't apparently think that you can handle opening up the case to your own phone. But if you're an Android user, you can buy as many extra batteries as you want, so not bad. Only gonna cost you 1 ounce for one of these spare batteries versus 3 to 4 ounces for a solar charger. The nice thing about solar charger is though, you don't have to plan in advance what item you're gonna need to charge. And worst case scenario, you're stuck out there for a while, you could charge indefinitely. So there you have it, that's the whole kit. Everything I used on that trip, and probably very similar to what I'll be using going forward for any summer warm weather trips. So between this and my winter backpacking video, you pretty much have an idea of what I use. Just want to emphasize this is what I use, it's what works for me, and I'm always improving stuff as I go. So this is not the definitive list of the ultimate backpacking list. This is not the definition of ultralight by far. People go way lighter than this to probably laugh at me right now. But this is just an example for those of you curious. You can see my setup and see what I use. Feel free to post in the comment section what you would or wouldn't do, maybe suggestions for me. I'm always open to criticism as long as it's, you know, somewhat polite or at least funny if you're going to be a jerk. So between this video and my winter gear list video, you pretty much have an idea of my two systems for the two extremes of weather. If you want to keep these videos around as a reference, just use that favorites button. That'll keep it around in your queue as a handy little reference. Make sure to subscribe if you're looking forward to future adventures. We'll definitely be posting them. Until next time, I'm Syntax77. Have fun out there.